Don in London, hello. It's the 23rd of February. My video is 23rd of February 2013. Hot off the press if you're seeing it today. I'm one of the many voices in recovery from addiction to either substance or behaviour. So I'm just one voice in recovery, and I share about how different elements helped me get into being sober one day at a time. First, there were professional people who dried me out. And then second, there was me, who was not particularly happy to be dried out. And third, and most importantly for me, came the fellowship of AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, where it wasn't something I wanted to join, it wasn't something I wanted to belong to, it was just there, and you could take it or leave it. And I didn't understand at the time that it was better to be in fellowship rather than outside it, because outside it I had no continuity of help and support. So the fellowship of AA, made up of everyone who needs to be sober for whatever reason, became a place where I could actually belong and be included and start to understand some of the more important aspects of living, knowing my feelings in the moment of now being primary. So how does AA help me, and why do I share about it? Well, number one, I don't speak for a fellowship which is full of unique, authentic people. So if you are in the fellowship, you know full well I don't speak for you, and I never can, and I never will, and I don't want to. At the same time, I was asked to share experience, strength and hope for people who cannot get to meetings, and for people who are new to the idea of recovery or coming back. So trying to share some positive words about recovery. And my voice is not enough. It's the many voices, the many people in fellowship who keep people sober today. So I'm very fortunate. A lot of people keep me sober, and I'm part of being a lot of people who keep other people sober. So it's the many, and not just one. So when we talk about, I'll go into that in a minute. I'll share the AA preamble, which puts me into the moment of now and slows me down trying to think ahead, because thinking ahead means I'm not in the moment. So the AA preamble. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. That's it. Help each other. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking, and I didn't even go with that to start with. I had no real desire to stop, I just wanted to end it all. But now I don't on a daily basis, even when I'm in the lowest of low in terms of clinical depression. So the only requirement is a desire to stop drinking, and even if you haven't got that, you can still go. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. In other words, if you don't have any money, it's okay. It's okay, and it's free at the point of entry. But if you have a few pennies to share, it's a bit like the principle of, 5 fishes and 2 loaves, or 2 loaves and 5 fishes, feeding the 5,000, and then nothing left. But somehow we cover our basic needs. We are self-supporting through our own contributions of loaves and fishes, or maybe pennies. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution. Does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. So the fellowship is therefore one thing, one primary purpose, is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. And in achieving sobriety, you keep your beliefs, your opinions, and you are allied to whatever you feel is right for you. In other words, you get to be a free human being again, free of alcohol on a daily basis. Because we know, left to our own devices on our own, and we're not coping too well, what do? We get to the nearest coping strategy called a bar, a market with alcohol, and buy it and drink it, and then think, oh no, maybe I've got to start again, or oh no, it's too hard, I want to die. So all these things can happen even if you're in recovery, which is why I do my daily reflections, not to be superior, but just to recognise I need to do it. I need to have a meditation for a few seconds or minutes. How am I feeling, why, and what can I do? So I can keep on learning the can do and cannot do today. Can do, live life sober. Cannot do, not a good idea to take a drink, because then the whole plot goes. Anyway, I was discombobulated or confused and angry this morning when I woke up. I turned on the daily news at about 5:30. I was up late, getting up late at 5:30 in the morning. Normally it's about 4, but I was engrossed in a film, Skyfall. I quite enjoyed it actually, but anyway, I was a bit late getting up, and then the news. This is before I've done my daily meditations, which is a foolish thing to do, to switch on the news before, because it will wind me up. Anyway, AAA status for the United Kingdom. This is AAA status, and Moody's, the rating agency, has downgraded the UK as being only AA. So it's now become AA status, just like me, AA, Alcoholics Anonymous. AAA status of the UK, now downgraded to AA or thereabouts. I mean, there are little symbols and things, but let's put it this way: we're no longer top dollar. Not even like the US being downgraded. Some of the workhouses of the world. Yeah, you've got to be careful when you say things like that. Workhorses of the world. We're not really where we feel we ought to be. Or is that so? Not if you're in AA. You go with what is, rather than what we might like. So, our Chancellor of the Exchequer, Mr. Osborne, he said we need to work harder, and he needs to work harder. Now, for me to keep my AA status, a fellow in Alcoholics Anonymous, all I need to do is understand my emotional and spiritual journey one day at a time. So I'm not trying to live in an illusion or grasp at something which is impossible right now. So this acknowledgement of failure by Mr. Osborne, actually he's created the economic conditions which have caused the failure, and he may try and blame the last government and the banks. But this particular failure is all his, because he's following an ideology. It's called Cameron and Osborne ideology of failure. No, it's not. I joke and jest. However, we're allowed to do that. When we set our credibility so high, and we cannot achieve or maintain such high standards as a country, the truth about the economy is that it is stagnant or shrinking one day at a time. So it only keeps on borrowing more money. I suppose I would like to admonish the current government for their lack of foresight and their lack of credibility today. AAA down to AA. If I were the Chancellor, I'd be looking for what I can do today, which is to stop chastising and undermining the unemployed workforce, dividing the deserving poor from the undeserving poor, because his focus is not on growth, it is on punishment of the weaker and most vulnerable in society. So, let's pick on somebody who's weak and make them the excuse and blame them. So in fellowship, if we're pointing one finger at other people and wagging it, the other three are wagging back at us. Same applies to Mr. Osborne. We ought to look at what he's doing. What's his part? What's his culpability? And he is culpable. So he is chastising the unemployed workforce, and he is making it their fault. Now the unemployed are far less than the employed, and he's also squeezing the employed as well, and making it hard for them. He ought to be focused on the big picture, the global impact and the opportunities for growth, and not punishment today. So he's not focused on the right things: capital investment, long-term projects, building 400,000 one and two bedroom dwellings for the 600,000 people who are missing somewhere to live. And that's just a small part of the problem. And he could do that quite easily if he just turned his head round and got it out of his arse. Anyway, that's just my personal feeling. So it ought to be focused on the big picture, the global impact and the opportunities for growth and not punishment today. In the fellowship, we understand we can and cannot do what we can and cannot do on a daily basis. And the fellowship is based on growth of emotional and spiritual living, so that we can address all matters in the material world as well. So it's very practical fellowship, emotional, spiritual, material. You still need to live, but also we are realistic about covering our needs and dealing with the wants, which will always be there to an extent. And the fellowship is based on growth of emotional and spiritual living, so that we can address all matters in the material world as well. We do not slouch and we don't grumble or crawl. We stand tall and look at what we can do today. So if I was Mr. Osborne, I would have a war council when it comes to the economic situation, and trying to do something positive and get some people in who are making money and keeping their organisations going, and find out what their facts are, and also ask the question, why is it that there is so much money on the cash flow balances of companies which is not being pushed into the dividends or profits, especially banks who keep on paying bonuses for people who are failing to make it happen. And stop paying them on trades. Anybody can trade. Commissions on trade or trading when the market's going down shouldn't be bloody getting any. Trading down in a downward market, what are you playing at? You're undermining everything and creating short-term bonuses. So it's a bit, long-term. Why not? If your contribution made a long-term impact and it was a good impact, get paid for it. If your long-term impact was crap, you shouldn't get it. You should be one of the deserving poor, or maybe undeserving poor. Anyway, coming back to reality, losing status on the way to rock bottom. This is about me. Now, I had no clue about status, and I remember being in some positions of authority within businesses that it did make people shake a bit when I went to see them, and I hated it. I wanted them to flourish. I know another friend of mine has a business called Flourish, which I think is absolutely right. And I had no clue about status. It was the very last thing on my mind. I was in oblivion and in a desperate state, and my ego completely lost the plot, if I really had one. I'm sure I did. It was there somewhere, lurking underneath all the other emotions, pointing the finger at the world whilst the other three were pointing back at me. But at the same time, and without ego, no self-esteem, with ego at rock bottom and with self-esteem at rock bottom, there is no hiding place. It's the most horrible place. Rocks and hard places, always. Fellowship is all about emerging and growing so we can cope in the moment of now and make plans for the future. We have AA status, AA status, which is sober and living in the moment of now, where we can feel life as it is and not keep on blaming the rest of the world. As the UK Chancellor wags his finger and says we must work harder, and he must work harder, we bloody well ought to. I can see he doesn't understand. We've got to work harder and smarter at the right things, looking at what is growth and not at ideology. And he doesn't know the answers to the can do and cannot do right now, so we ought to get in some help, which is a successful amount of help. Look for pick some winners, get them in for a brainstorm, and get out of your arse. Personal feelings there. We do have them. We are allowed to have our feelings, especially about politicians who are screwing us over by their inability to see the truth. And all this bipartisan crap coming from either side of the government benches is very annoying, because one lot are living in the past and the other lot are trying to impose an ideology of the past on us. And we don't even have workhouses these days, and even the Irish government, the Prime Minister, I can't remember what he's called in Irish, But he's been apologising for the workhouses, which were still going in the 1960s, and here we are, almost back to that, where you're put into a pound shop in order to get some work experience. I worked for Woolworths when I first started. No, that's not true. I started as a lorry driver working for the co-op, delivering lemonade to very poor areas of Birmingham. It was a great job. I loved it. And I also love my hobby, which is photography. And after that, I went to Woolworths, F.W. Woolworth & Co., and got into their management in the end over a rebellious streak in me. Still made it and started growing as an individual. Then went back to university on what's it called? I was able to get a grant for part of it and work part of the time, and I didn't have debts when I came out, except the usual ones, a bar bill beyond belief. Anyway, ego and status, the puffed up politician riding on the crest of the rocks of the economy. Yeah, they're razor sharp at the moment, so if you get your arse on those, they're going to hurt. So for me, he has become a blight on recovery in economic terms, turning the screws, dampening down growth, and at the same time using quantitative easing to improve the bank capital, and then borrow money to put off the evil day when his strategy and tactics show failure and more problems rather than a solution. As he crows, as Mr. Osborne crows about unemployment going down, there is no growth to correspond with this statistic. So more people are in employment according to the official statistics, which are not government, it's done by the Office of Fair Statistics, which the Chancellor can then use to tell lies. Lies, damn lies, and statistics. So it says more people employed, and yet less output, and the income figures are down. So the illusions of ego and status trying to struggle with AAA status is a figment and not a reality. It's been a figment for some time. So we've got off pretty lightly. But we are good for the money, I know that. Because it's there, really, in the workforce. It always is. It always is. The illusions of ego and status trying to struggle for that AAA. It doesn't matter. Not if you're already at rock bottom, but then the Chancellor applies yet another tax on the poorest, and the rich keep on getting richer one day at a time. I've said it before, rich people need poor people, because without the poor people they couldn't be rich. Because it's we who actually create the wealth. Even if we're poor, we're contributing, and they're taking a slice out each time. So that's why they're mega wealthy and we're mega poor. So the distribution of wealth is a bit lopsided, where only a small percentage, less than 10%, own over 90%. Still. So not if you're already at rock bottom, but then the Chancellor applies these other taxes. The age-old problem, short-term politicians creating long-term nightmares, and they know what they are doing, ? Do they know what they're doing? Blinded by ego and ideology, the addiction to power, their rock bottom will follow, and the problem is they can take the rest of us with them. So on the back of political ideology, which is what it's a scourge of old timers in politics saying, when I was in power it was like this, and then the scourge of the new politicians which said it was all the bank's fault, or it was all their fault over there. The point is, all the politicians have colluded in filling their pockets with as much expense money as they possibly can, as legitimately as they can, and in some cases dishonestly, which is why they went to prison. Now, that's still going on, because they haven't broken free, and they haven't been given a clear-cut line, because they don't get paid properly. Now, that is the fault of politicians, and us, allowing them to have a fudge around their own income. But that fudge is not applied to the rest of society. Oh no. No, you can be a tax evader which is illegal. Yes, evasion is illegal, means you're doing something illegal. And then there is avoidance, which is being smart about your money. So if you go to moneysupermarket.com, they'll tell you how to minimise your costs, which then become less taxable. Now that's all right, but actually it's avoiding giving the Chancellor more than he can, more money. So avoidance is smart, and because the government haven't tightened up the loopholes, or the government, actually what they're doing at the moment, they're throttling everybody, so there is no point in making more money, and they're throttling people's commercialism and ability to get on track with integrity. So the more they look at the evasion and the bank balance going down, the less they are concentrating on the positive where to make the money and get people back to work. And work experience programs are not the answer, as has been proved. What we need to do is enable people to have a positive attitude to making their way in life without entitlements or expectations beyond reality. So people ought to say, it's a bloody difficult situation. If you can get any job right now, wherever it may be, good. But we're not going to chastise you if there are no jobs out there and you've applied for a couple of hundred and you're feeling a bit despondent. We do keep on trying. I know I did. My career went all over the place because I kept saying yes, because it was the right thing to do at the time. So, where am I? I know a lot, but it's no use. No one's listening. That's all right, because I'm not going that way. So short-term politicians creating long-term nightmares, and they know what they are doing. Well, they are blinded by ego and ideology. The addiction to power, their rock bottom will follow. And the problem is they can take the rest of us with them. I could tell them what they're doing wrong, but it is wasted effort. There are better people than me who are more able to describe what they should do and what they're not doing one day at a time. So how does this affect me in my recovery? Trained as an economist, average one, trained as a businessman, well, actually I was successful at both these disciplines in practical terms over many years. I used to make millions of pounds for other people, but not for me. Now what does that tell me? It means I had problems and confidence issues. I've left those disciplines behind me, concentrating on something I care about more than them, which is real people and real solutions being created one day at a time. So this is why I do my videos. It's about real people. You're real, and if you're in recovery, that is where we start, and then everything else can go on. So practical living, understanding problems and learning solutions on the emotional and spiritual level helps me be more practical in the material world. I work with needs met and wants let go most of the time. So not much really winds me up, because I don't go for entitlement. I don't go for expectations being beyond reality, if I can possibly do it. Sometimes it's very difficult to equate the two and for us to have balance, but needs met, wants forgotten mostly. Thankfully I am one voice, and there are many voices sharing about the experience, strength and hope in recovery. So when I go a bit off beam like today, and maybe it doesn't sound like I'm very spiritual, it's in the moment of now. So whatever my feelings are in the moment, when I'm made angry, or I feel angry about what somebody says about the economy, and we all need to work harder, people apply themselves the best they can with what they have, and they need some encouragement. They don't need another bloody brickbat thrown their way. And the Chancellor saying, I need to work harder, by cutting growth, by cutting and not spending, well anyway, and borrowing. Yeah, thankfully I am one voice, and there are many voices sharing about the experience, strength and hope in recovery. Many people, millions, maybe all equal and adaptable to varying degrees, one day at a time. So we're learning together with fellowship around truth, love and wisdom. And who is lagging behind in the land of ideology? Politicians and ideologists. But we do have ideologists in fellowship, which is why I always say fellowship is about developing the personal freedoms which are right for you and not to be imposed on. Or if somebody tells you what to do, you are quite entitled to say thank you very much for the advice and go away from them. And very often, well, not very often, they will inspire anger and resentment, and if they do that, you might tell them to fuck off, which I have been known to do, but then I've gone back and apologised, because forgive everybody everything. It doesn't matter if the person has a different point of view, they're allowed to have it, and that's good. But less so with us fellowship people. We are more flexible and adaptable, hopefully, and more equal to the challenge of life today. Now, so sober, with a clear head about what is a higher power, which is the wisdom of the universe. I'm not thinking we are the higher power. We are more flexible and adaptable and more equal to the challenge of life today. And if we are not, we have the confidence, hopefully, and the humility to ask for help from those who are able and where we need help to develop just for today. Now, in a land awash with debt and a diminishing economy, shouting the odds over the benches in Parliament is nonsense. Makes no sense. We need some good engineers, economic engineers, who know what they're talking about. And they don't reside on the front benches of either side of the government, because they have their advisors and they have their statistics, which are crap. Look at what is happening now and look for the improvement. That's where you start. I love my life the way it is. After all that, I love my life the way it is, slowly developing, never knowing quite where it may go, and without fear of loss. I never realised just how much ego and status was important to many people, and somehow I missed the point of power over others. It was never my need to dominate you. At the same time, with strong opinions and beliefs, I have got those. It got me into all sorts of trouble and all sorts of success over the years. But I missed the obvious. I had lost my hold on truth. How to love and how to be loved back, and the wisdom growing on a daily basis. That's what happened. Truth, love and wisdom growing. That wisdom of the world as well, which means financial as much as anything else. But, emotional, spiritual, able to cope in the moment of now, and feelings working in the moment of now. When we are focused on the detail and measure success by impossible material measures, which don't count in the reality of now, they don't. We miss the point, and we miss what we can do as we endeavour and have humility to keep on learning one day at a time. So, how am I feeling this morning? Why and what can I do? These are the basic questions which sort out my emotional and spiritual connection to reality and how I may cope. When I heard the news about the UK economy being downgraded to AA, or whatever version of AA it happens to be, and the Chancellor's response that he needed to continue on his path and work harder at it, I had a feeling of, oh no, here we go again. Another round of tax rises and cutting back on spending, when spending on real assets of growth and humans who can grow was missing. So, I tell you what, we'll have a bedroom tax. That's another way of getting a few quid out of the bastards. There's 660,000 people who are overcrowded, and a couple of 100,000 people who have an extra bedroom they're not using, so we'll tax their bedroom. And there's a mismatch all the way through, and he doesn't do the basics. Anyway, so, oh no, here we go again, another round of tax rises and cutting back on spending, when spending on real assets of growth and humans who can grow was missing. I was dismayed and angry. I then needed to come back to my reality. I felt okay in myself, felt a bit tired. I needed to adjust my blood sugars, 14, which is double what they ought to be. I need to catch up with my daily reflections. I can do the manageable bits for myself. And then a phone call from a friend, and news which was not so good about some parts of other people's lives. Lots of grief about. and grief and love, and other parts of life where endeavour proves that if we have a can-do attitude and a cannot-do attitude, it's working. We learn the difference to know the difference today. So that serenity prayer is a very, very good thing, because even if you've got a can-do, I can cut the economy, and I can blame all the problems on the undeserving poor, which are undermining my bank balance. That's not true. It means that your underlying economy is shit, and we need to do something about that. That's what we need to do something about. The undeserving poor won't be an issue if the economy were working properly, and you wouldn't have to classify them as a third world group of people in a first world economic. Well, it's not quite first world now. We are living in a third world economy because of you, Mr. Osborne, and all your mentors. And if you blame the past, all you're doing is making yourself look foolish. It was all their fault. You've had a few years in now. It's not their fault. It's about what you do, and whether it's faulty or not, it's up to you. So I ought to mind my own business, really, when it comes to things I can't do anything about. So, yeah, and so where am I? Yeah, rather than take, yeah, where was I? After missing my writing and morning reflections yesterday, because I had to get up early, I wanted to go see my sister. She was in town. Catching up today is a pleasure, refreshed in different ways by seeing different people, getting new perspectives and new outlooks, and sharing experience, strength and hope. Rather than try and make a video yesterday, when I was tired and exhausted, I let the endeavour go. And in letting go, not worrying about it or feeling anything other than what was going on, back in those moments of now, but in yesterday, those now moments, looking after myself, being able to love those I was with, was all working well. And I realised more and more with humility, so many people and so many voices sharing experience, strength and hope across the globe, I am unlikely to be missed for one day or for many days. Fellowship rocks, definitely, the Fellowship of AA, because it's provided me with a better outlook of how to live. Real reality. We are all in it together with one primary purpose, to be sober today. However we achieve that, it is usually the many working in harmony to the truth of now, how to love, and more difficult, how sometimes for me particularly, how to be loved back. It keeps on growing moment to moment and just for today. And I'm glad. YouTube's knocked off hundreds of thousands of views off my videos. For some reason, it's their new analytics thing. So there you go. I've been cut back. I don't mind though. The whole point of doing these videos, if it helps one person, it's done its job. And actually it's helped me. It makes me focus on what's important and letting go all those struggles around ego, status, power, which could be quite attractive, I guess. The one good thing about fellowship is ego, power and status don't really work in it. It's about sharing truth. And the serenity prayer puts me back into balance more often than not. And sharing it with other people is really important. Can do, can't do, wisdom to know the difference. It requires that I ask for help. Because sometimes when I think I can't do something, I go and say, I can't do this. And I say, well, have you thought about that? Oh, I can't do that, I'll do this. And we find wisdom where we need it. We ask the right people. There's plenty of wisdom which is useless. My economic and business acumen from the past, it's useless to me now. I'm more focused on emotional and spiritual development and what I can and cannot do. So I have great limitations caused by chronic ailments, and it doesn't get me down particularly. Only when I look back at some of the escapades, it can, well, at least I've got the escapades to be aware of, but not to buoy me up and then knock myself down. It means that I've been alive long enough to have some escapades, and I'm glad I did. So if you're young and new, don't quit sobriety, just have fun and find happiness, find love, and the material world will come along in due course in the right measure for you. But if you're looking for power, status and all the rest of it, it becomes an addiction beyond belief, just like drinking alcohol or any drug or any behaviour. It's convivial, joyful, becomes our best friend. We become codependent on something, and then we're caught in the trap of addiction. And then it's recovery, one day at a time, living reality. So to God and in good conscience, and flakes of snow coming down this morning, February 23, 2013. That serenity prayer. To God or in good conscience, the higher power is all around us, if only we ask for help. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. In the moment, in the minute, hour, day, and often by asking for help. It's good. It's not invented here. Fellowship is invented by everyone, all equal, if we understand that we are equal. And that takes quite a while to get to. More tomorrow, if I can.